have some leftover wood from the workbench project, so in this video, I'm going to build a new Bluetooth speaker for the workshop. I've always loved the sound of classic radios, so I want to make something that's going to sound kind of like a 1970s stereo. I sourced some components from Amazon, and I'm going to assemble everything together first to make sure that it all works the way I want it to. I haven't soldered a lot in years, so these joints are kind of messy, but they get the job done. Now that everything's wired together, turn on the power. Success! It all seems to work. Since I'm working with the leftover rosewood, ebony, and ash, I'm gonna wear a mask. Here's where it's going to start getting stranger than usual. I'm going to use a technique called steam bending to bow in the sides of the speaker housing. After letting the rosewood steam for a few hours, I clamped it to the form that I cut out on the bandsaw. After letting it dry for 24 hours, the wood is now keeping a nice curve. Now I move over to the CNC router to cut out the front of the chassis, the speaker grill, and the actual speaker mounting plate. The front of the chassis, just like the sides, is going to be the rosewood that was left over from the workbench build, but I also had some ebony left over, and I wanted to use that for the front-facing speaker grill. I've got it all glued up with all the curves. After 24 hours, seems to be holding. Since the sides aren't straight, it was a little tricky to make the base for the speaker cabinet. But I figured it out and added a piece of ebony to the top. So what I'm doing here is really more shaping than sanding. I wanted to curve the sides so they had a nice organic feel, and then taper in the back so that the top is smaller than the base. Unlike the workbench, I only sanded this speaker housing to 800 grit. I wanted a little bit more of a satin finish. And of course, I can't work with rosewood and ebony without throwing in some brass. Shiny brass. got the electronics all assembled and tested, but now I actually need to mount them inside the speaker chassis. I'm also going to add some cloth that looks like burlap to cover the speakers and the vent holes in the front of the chassis. This gives it the real vintage look that I'm going for. I used some acrylic left over from the windows in the front of the workbench as a mounting plate for the electronics. Now that everything's in the chassis and tested, now it's time to button it up. The chassis really did come out exactly as I wanted it. The bends were right, the ebony and the rosewood worked well together, the brass accents really set off the whole unit. All in all, I'm really happy with this. It sounds just like a 70s radio. If you're thinking it's too pretty for the workshop, don't worry. My wife thought the same thing, so it's gonna go live in the house now. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.